Thank you for joining us and welcome to another episode of Candid Convos. Today's guest is Terrell Turner. Terrell, thank you for joining us and please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, I just said it. My name is Terrell Turner. My background is accounting and finance, and we work with a lot of law firms and other service-oriented businesses, really helping them understand the finance and the accounting side, make that less complicated, so they can actually make better, money decisions when it comes down to their business.
Mm-hmm. So you are not only a business owner and helping lawyers and law firms navigate through their finances. I also know that you're a podcast host. Am I right?
Yes, so I host a couple of podcasts. So about 3 years ago, my wife and I started a media company called Business Talk Library, where we host about several different podcasts on different, for different target audiences. There's one for lawyers understanding the business side. There's one for accountants. My wife is fluent in 5 languages, so she does one in Spanish. So we try to serve, take our expertise and serve different audiences across, the business spectrum.
Wow. So I like the way that you set that up because you have a finances company and now you also have different channels to which you like to reaching out to your audience. I've been listening to your podcast. I know you have very interesting guests in there. So what made you think that was a good setup for you? So both the business and the podcast to be working with your clients.
Yeah, I mean, so I was working in the corporate world. So I've worked for Fortune 500 companies and I've worked for like smaller startup companies. And so when I decided to leave that corporate world to start my own business, well, before I did, I had interviewed a couple of, CPAs, a couple of other finance people and asked them like, hey, how was it for you starting your firm? A lot of the advice that they gave me, I'm like, okay, all right, I can use these things to start building my business. Well, when I finally left my job, it was March 30th of 2020. So that was like right in the middle of the pandemic. So none of the strategies they gave me would work. And so so I had to get creative. And so one of the things that I realized is like, hey, people would be willing to meet and hop on Zoom. And, I said, I'll use it as market research and interview more people, more business owners, understand what their problems are and how my services might be able to, meet that need. And so after doing about 200 interviews within like the first 7 months, I was just like, hey, there's something to continuing the content to where I can do both the content as well as run the business and services.
Well, first, thank you for that answer. But during your answer, I was detecting something. I might be mistaken. Just correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like you have this passion for what you do. When you start saying how you like servicing your clients and how you like working with them, I can't avoid noticing a smile and drive and a spark in your eyes. I'm wondering if how is that? Like, why is that?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, accounting and finance was, I call it, it was probably like my lifeboat in an ocean or whatever. Because, I would say growing up, I wasn't really that enthused about a lot of the different career paths or a lot of the different education paths. But in high school, when I started, I took my first accounting class in high school. And for me, that's where the light bulb went off of like, hey, I enjoy math, I enjoy business and the idea of entrepreneurship, and accounting allowed me to bring those two together. And I think just as I progressed, I started realizing that there were a lot of people who were struggling in their business because they didn't have the understanding of the finance and accounting. And I think being able to provide that and just seeing people have this sense of relief or like, hey, there is hope at the end of this tunnel. I do see a path to move forward. And when I started realizing like, hey, I can use finance and accounting to make that type of impact, for me, it really made me excited about, what we do in our firm and the value we deliver, because we do more than just doing your books in the background. We're really helping people become more confident business owners and helping them make smarter decisions, which means like their stress levels going down, which means they can be more present in other areas of their life. Like they can show up in their family and be more present there because they're not stressed out in the middle of the night. Like, what are we going to do about this? Like, hey, whatever problem it is, we can lay out a game plan and we can strategize. And there is a solution that we can come up with if you're willing to do the work and we're willing to work together and really navigate this. And I think, for me, I'm excited because finance allows us to be able to do that for people where they didn't have that before.
Now that we know better who Terrell Turner is, I'm wondering if you can share with us and with our audience, which is mainly composed by lawyers and also lawyer coaches, but this goes out to thousands of people. So what does the TLT Turner Group do, or what can you do for law firms and businesses out there so they know that they can reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Terrell Turner Group, we provide bookkeeping for law firms and CFO services. So from a bookkeeping perspective, that there's a lot of transactions going on. To be able to sort all those transactions out, to be able to provide you with reliable financial statements so you understand how did we perform, what was our revenue versus our expenses. And also when it comes down to tracking like three-way matches for like if you have trust accounting, and even for some, some of our clients there, they may be getting like a line of credit on their business, or they may be trying to buy the office building that they're in or something. And the bank wants to see good financial statements to be able to do that. So we provide some help in that area. And then on the CFO side is typically for a firm, if they're doing more than, let's say, about $1 million plus a year, is where you start getting into some CFO services where we're looking at things like, okay, productivity and building out financial dashboards. Like, how do we take their marketing data with their production data to determine like, hey, what types of cases should you be targeting if you want to increase the profitability of your firm? Or even looking at things like we created this thing called an employee ROI calculator of helping, clients understand like, should we hire full-time? Should we go with outsourced staffing? Or, hey, should we hire part-time? Well, what the calculator allows them to do is plug in their numbers so they can see like, okay, what makes sense for our business where we are now? And I think what it does is it helps, lawyers who are no longer just practicing law, but they're trying to run their business. It starts to give them kind of like their centralized dashboard of understanding, hey, here's the impact of the decisions that I'm making. And once they start to understand the numbers, they can feel confident to say, hey, based on the numbers and the information we have, this is the right decision to make. And so they can move forward in a confident way.
Now, unfortunately, Terrell, we are running out of time, but before we do, there's just two more things that I'd like to ask. So first one is your business. It's not like, I imagine, and like, correct me if I'm wrong, but your business, it's not like it adapted itself to the virtual environment that we're currently living and working in, but it's more like your practice did. Your knowledge led you to that. So in your opinion, I'm just wondering, how did your business adapt, or how did your practice adapt towards this virtual environment that we're currently working in?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, similar to the legal industry, the accounting industry was never designed to be virtual. I mean, that's just not how it was designed to work. And one of the things that I realized is that, if we're going to bring the solution of what we have to people, is we have to, become a little bit more mobile. We have to become a bit more virtual. Now, of course, COVID and the impact of COVID helped, spur that along. But I think also internally, when we started looking at things of like, how could we be more efficient? And we started, I started documenting processes, like, grabbing a notebook and just writing out the processes. And I started seeing like, hey, there are some areas where we have opportunity to be better, because the better we are at what we do, the more we can help more people. And I think at the time in the beginning, when I started looking at that, and I was like, okay, all right, by having cleaner processes, we can also, take our, we can hire offshore team. And so we started hiring offshore team because we're like, we know the processes, we have to get mobile. And I think by that combination of all those things and realizing that, hey, the clients needed us to be there when they needed us to be there, not, hey, you have to come to our drive, get in your car, stop what you're doing, drive over to our office. Now we'll sit down, have a conversation, get in your car and drive back. And I'm just like, that's so much lost time that they could be doing something else. And so for us, I think we just said that, you know what, the opportunity and the need for us to go virtual is there. Let's, do the hard work of, going against the grain of how our industry was designed and figure out how do we maximize the value for our clients by going virtual.
Mm-hmm. And that is very daring, but I imagine it's already you're already reaping the benefits, because it's not gonna go back the way it was. I don't think it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's so true. And by us doing it, it put us in a position to help a lot of our clients, because, when I'm working with different law firms and, they're still kind of struggling to, how do I really, like, I'm doing the virtual because I was forced to do it, but how do you really embrace it and really take it to the next level? Like, for example, like when it comes down to hiring, like we talk to firms where they're just like, well, I can't find anybody to hire local. Well, it's just like, hey, if we get some really clean processes, you can actually, hire people offshore, or you can hire a virtual team, but you have to get your processes in order to be able to do that. And as they're able to see that, and we can say, hey, that's what we did, here's what we did. And then they can have a lot more confidence, like, oh, maybe this can work.
Yeah, exactly. It can work. It's just breaking the ice. And you did it successfully, which leads me to my final question, which is for people that are out there looking for financial services, CFO services, can you please let them know where they can find you and what you can do for them?
Yes, they can find us at tlturnergroup.com, or you can email me directly. It's Terrell at tlturnergroup.com is my direct email. I do check my emails, so you can get in touch with me directly. And as I was saying earlier, is we provide bookkeeping services for a lot of companies that are growing, that you want to get a good handle on understanding what's going on with your numbers. The bookkeeping services are great for that. And also, we also do bookkeeping assessments. So where some firms reach out to us, they say, hey, we have a bookkeeper, but I don't know if I'm getting the full value from it. We'll help them say, hey, here's an assessment of what we think you should be expecting from your bookkeeper. And you can share this list with your current person you're working with. And a lot of times what that does is firms are able to improve their relationship with their existing bookkeeper because they know what questions to ask. So we do that for some clients or for people who reach out as well. And then also the CFO services for the firms who are really trying to figure out, how do we take this firm to the next level? How do I step out of practicing law to really be the business owner of the firm, and where we can really play a role on the CFO side of helping them take that to the next level.
Mm-hmm. Well, Terrell, I got to say that that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, but I really enjoyed having you here. It was very enlightening, speaking to the accounting and the finances side from a very different perspective, very grounded, very dead center, but at the same time, I don't know why it felt different. It felt very open and very gracious. So I am grateful for your time, and thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Okay, so see you next time, guys, in another episode.